some claims that are pretty outlandish, but I can back them up. Boom. End of story. There is no other crypto out there, so don't get it twisted. If you don't understand where you're parking your money, you're going to pay the consequences for that, and that's just how the cookie crumbles. Boom. We're obliterating everybody. Literally. There is nobody else, right? The reality is that I want to be rich as fuck. There's only one way to be rich as fuck. That's by sitting on your ass the longest. Yep. That's it. Yep. That's the secret. The guy well told you. Richard done told you. I done told you. Kareem done told you. Maddie done told you. Everybody done told you. Everybody done told you. These motherfuckers still acting like they don't know. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
100% safe. There's plenty of games left.
Valiant done told you. Yo, everybody said it. Man, hey, you know what it is, man? Everybody done told you. Y'all's deep. Everybody. My God. Hex Asians, bro. Everybody. Australians, man. Everybody gets me. Yo, when is it told you? Dollar told you. Everybody done told you. It's crazy. Yo, peace, fam. What's going on? Figured I'd go live this morning, talk about what's going on. There's so much going on. I found some information that I had forgotten about, thanks to one of our community members. They brought it to my attention. So I figured it'd be a good point in time to probably bring it to your attention. So we're gonna talk about a few things. Kind of try to get our head around what's presently going on now that the queen is gone. You know, what changes, and you know, things are gonna change. They're gonna change now because that's how the system works, right? Every period in time where something that has to do with a drastic change, you know, it always adds some type of sauce into the mix, right? Like it switches stuff up. So you know, talk about that too. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank you guys for joining in. JR Solo, Alan Fizzaman, Robo, what's good, homie? What's going on, D? T Bird, what's up? Eagle like AI or Eagle Owl. I don't know which one, but what's up, brother? Dougie was good, bro. What's up, Super Freak? Yeah, this is a good question. I do not think that it is, and we'll cover that. And I'll show you how I look at the RSI. That'll answer why I don't think we're topping out just yet. We do for a pullback for sure, because the market is really, you know, ready to snap, basically. I mean, you're seeing it in the FX. We'll go over the FX markets, the rate markets. You know, we'll cover a little bit of everything. See how things are going overall, because that's the point of the stream. You know, it's easy to just be in one trade, but you know, for people like us that understand that crypto is what we have to be, you know, you have to understand. You're like there's a lot of people that presume because the dollar is going up in value that's why we're seeing increase in rates. It's actually the opposite. Rates are going up, therefore the dollar goes up, because people are saying, oh, you get more yield over here, let me go get that piece of paper. That's how the system actually works. So it's not the other way around, unfortunately. Very, very important distinction, because once rates start going down, it's actually the opposite. It's you know, like a liquidity pool, right? Once people do not want this thing, the value of that thing starts going down. And that's what happens when the price of interest rate instruments goes down. The yield goes up. People don't want this thing anymore. And that's kind of what we've been seeing here, right? That's the logic, right? On the way out, that works. But the yields are actually going up first before people are saying, hey, that dollar. And we'll cover that. We'll cover that because you'll see this relation is kind of true for a lot of currencies. So it's not just really the dollar. Um, what's going on, Isaac? Thank you for tuning in, brother. Crypto games was good. Smash them likes, homies. Smash them likes. What's up, Ryan? AK was good. Luis was good, homie. Yep, no BS. We got so many options now after you lay off that 555 stake, right? Especially if you're doing an HSI. If you're doing an HSI, you have the ability to do that that buyback and get ICOSA for it and all that now. So you got so many options. Please do your research, understand all the avenues of approach that you have with this system now. Because you can tokenize a stake, you can do a native stake, and you just do some time, wait it out till you miss some hedron, whatever the case is, right? But you just got to figure out what's best for you. Everybody isn't willing to do a HSI buyback, so it just depends. What's going on? What up? Yes, sir. Nothing but alpha around here. Nothing but. What up, Adam? Hex boy, J, everything was good. Appreciate you, brother. Crispy, what's going on, bro? I hope your site is kind. I mean, on your site, but I hope it's going to your liking. Cause once you roll out something like that, man, that's a major tool. Major tool, brother. Cool. My pleasure, man. My pleasure. So shout out to everybody in the chat. You guys got questions. Today's gonna be one of those days where you want to just dump them in there as I go through the motions and start talking about all this stuff. So shout out to you guys for joining. Yeah, that's typically when markets have a nice little dumpola, and I think we've gone over this before, but we'll cover it again. Oh boy, give me a second, guys. All right, sorry, this work being annoying. So yeah, it really is. So we'll go into what I think might happen or whatever. Thank you, Nardo, for the super chat, man. Appreciate you. Ow, gotcha. Yeah, this is something I've been talking about for a while. You know, bull. What's the point of what we're doing here? The point of what we're doing is to make money or find breathing room or accomplish a certain goal or whatever. Right, whatever you're doing. Um, Now, the most optimal time to do any action of this variety is when everybody is going the opposite way, right? And this is what's hard for people to understand. During bull markets, they want to be buying, but that's not the time to be buying. I mean, you buy if you find it at that point in time and you have no other option just to get into the game because there's still all games to be had, right? And assuming you understand what's going on. But when we're talking about just plain old, um, just plain old DC. Like what most people are trying to do is find their way into the rich man house, right? I mean, everybody's just trying to get paid. And at the end of the day, that's easier said than done, right? But that's the whole name of the game. It's for you to figure out what it is you're supposed to be doing and when. Now, the thing about it is that for most people, the thing is that they want to see those gains now, not tomorrow. Um, and that's just not the way it works sometimes, right? Not the way it works. And what that means is that you have to figure out how it works because it's not instant, right? This ain't instant oatmeal. Just put it in the microwave and get what you want in 2 minutes. It don't work that way. So how it really works is that you do your best shopping during this season. And this season is called, you know, the bear market. That's what they call it. But it's actually when millionaires have made. It's his millionaire making season. Depending on how much disposable income you have, it might be billionaire making season. And this is the reality of what's actually going on. Right? I mean, what happens if, because people really don't understand this, and I go over this often, but what happens if you see something like what's happened in Lebanon or Libya or Iraq, where these currencies just disappear overnight. I mean, this happens. This happens in 2020, in the 21st century. This has happened. I've seen it. I've seen them all. And for the person that isn't looking for this type of activity, they're not going to be aware that it exists or that it is even possible or that it even happens in the 21st century, but it does. And what that means is that it can happen to you too, because you're a part of the same system where that is already happening. I mean, this is crucial to understand because this is where having different bits of information at your disposal allows you to make strategic decisions. So DCAing definitely is for the now. I mean, let's no, let me leave this one alone. I got another chart. Now, this is just to highlight the seriousness of dollar cost averaging during bear markets because this is something that people need to understand. This is like a legit public service announcement. Like, you really need to understand this. This is the time to be doing your big buying, not when the market is ripping. Unless you're trying to take gains as the market is ripping, right? I mean, we just went through this, right? And this was the whole point of staking, so you wouldn't have to suffer through those pullbacks unless you intended on taking gains. And given that we're so early in this ride, in my mind, I'm locking it in for the full ride. I'm not taking no gains. So what you end up seeing um, is anytime you just locked it in and just kept buying, kept buying, kept buying. I mean, this is sub $20 down here. right? Anything before 2015, I'm sorry, 2014, that's really sub $20 price action. And Bitcoin isn't going below $10,000 really permanently anytime soon, unless they really pull the plug on it, right? Because that's also an option, because it's not decentralized. I mean, if you don't understand that by now, then you're not paying attention to what's happening in Bitcoin, and good luck to you, because it's no longer a protocol where you can say it lives alone on a blockchain. It doesn't. With all these paper markets that are being thrown on top of it, that's just no longer the case. It's now been, and I've been saying this for a while now, it's been co-opted by institutions, right? This is why we saw this double top and not this spike that we usually see, right? I mean, talked about this while it was happening. I explained the sentiment effect that caused that long drawn out sideways price action, right? All this was 2021 right here. All that, right? All of this was 2021. And this, I've been streaming that whole time. So I explained what they were doing, how they were lulling people into the market to, dumping on them. And that's exactly what happened, right? And this is the institutions. Because this is how it works on Wall Street. This is what they do, right? And where can we see that? Do I have a spot here or something? Nope. Give me a second, guys. Yeah, I got XPX. So let's just go in 10-year increments. This is 2022, 2012, right? If you go back to 2012, this is 5 days per candle now. But you got a double top here, right? It's just not as wide of a distribution pattern. All right, but this is from March to May. Couple months. People waited. Right, but this was, of course, after some volatility and all this crazy stuff that was happening at the time. I don't know if a lot of you guys are even going to remember, but the U.S. got downgraded. U.S. credits rating got downgraded, so that was a pretty significant event. We were just coming out of the recession. Everybody sentiment was still super bearish when everybody should have really been buying. On a sentiment basis, that's really what you should have been doing. Me looking back at it now, right, 11 years on, because I was in the business already at this point in time. So I saw what people were saying and thinking. Like, I understood. And even I was part of the negative sentiment camp because I didn't understand at that point that economics is not reflected in the market. Sentiment is what's reflected in the market, right? This is why people are buying their pants off at these points in time, only to end up losing it all in their minds, because the market always comes back, because that's the whole point of the dollar. It's so that if you're investing in it, or investing in the respective markets, you don't lose, as long as you have a long enough standing power, right? So all of 2012 on up was just a slow grind higher, and people were shorting their life. They were shorting left and right. I was part of that group of people, so I know. And the market just never gave a damn. It just kept getting bought and bought and bought, and never seeing new lows. Never, right? And here we are, 2x later, basically 2x plus. Anyway, and all along the way, people are getting goaded by geopolitics, economic reality, into shorting markets and only really getting menial returns during this process, right? I mean, let's measure some of these dips. You know, this is 14 days or 7 days a week, 10%. 20%, 78 days, right? But the lull, right? You get lulled in every time. And this is kind of the point. I mean, look at this. This thing looks like it's never going to stop going down, and people buy into that. And then this is the point, right? This is exactly what happened with Bitcoin. Except for that, the caliber of market participant was even more inferior because people here really just expected to keep going up. There is no further thought than that. And that's very important to understand because that that psychology is what's going to lead to people's actions and what you can see them doing in the future, right? That's important to understand. Descending into Hex, how should I do my stakes? Because if I make each week a stake, we lose lots of. Yeah, I don't know why you would make a weekly stake. I would never advise on that. The shortest duration I would recommend on a staking rotation would be 6 months because for now we only have ETH to contend with. So you want to give the stake time to accrue some kind of P&L. And I mean, to be honest with you, if you want it to be something significant, you want to give it some time to bake, right? So I would say at least 2 years. My preferred number is 3, but that's because that's my favorite number. Some people are impatient. Majority of my teachers are 15 years. So I don't know. It all depends on what you perceive to be valuable for you. Whatever makes sense to you. I think the optimal time for a short play would be 2 to 3 years. Hey, what's up, Stewie, man? How you doing, brother? Long time no see. What up, Kurt? Okay. So yeah. So these are things I want you guys to understand, right? Like the market's changed. So what looks like a bottom could not be a bottom, right? Yeah, I'll talk about that later on. You definitely want to be doing that though, right? Like this is a system now where you can use uh short time frames to build capital, right? Because when you stake Icosa, Hedron, you have the option to do 30-day stakes, 360-day stakes. So you can keep building on those stakes as they happen through time and rotation. So these are things you want to like really play with, figure out how the system works. Like the time is now. You don't really want to wait to play with that. You really want to address it now, see how the system works, um, and make sure that it makes sense to you, right? At least what you're thinking. Because the whole point is stacking, right? We want to be stacking crypto because the dollar only goes one way in value. This is why Bitcoin's at 20,000. This is why every crypto has value against it because the dollar only goes one way. And that's very critical. Very critical to understand, guys, because this game is funny. If you don't understand what money is, you can end up making the wrong decision because we all are trying to find success, right? Everybody's trying to make that coin, but what does that coin actually look like, right? It's very difficult to say. But what we can see is that we want to be buying now during these dips. We don't want to be buying during these tops. We want to be buying during these dips because then we don't see risk. Risk is non-existent. All the people that bought Bitcoin at $200, I was one of the people that could have bought Bitcoin at $200. But because I didn't like the dollar value, I bought something else because I understood the leverage embedded in the value per unit, right? So if I got $20,000 and I'm buying $200 each Bitcoin, I'm only getting like 1,000 Bitcoin, right? I'm not getting that much Bitcoin. Where if I'm buying something that's cheaper, I'm gonna get way more units of it, and that's all that matters to me if I'm trying to make money. At this point, I didn't understand that this was a long term thing, so that was my thinking at the time, and that's what I'm trying to explain. And this is why I want you guys to understand that if you understand what you're doing, then DCAing is the right now thing to be doing, right? It's like having a big chain and the gaudy clothing and all that. If you're an artist or something, if you want to seek attention, right? Call attention to yourself. And that's what you want to focus on, right? What's your mission? Is your mission quick gains? Because if it is, now is not the time to be buying because you're just going to be waiting around. You're going to be impatient. You're going to be doing stupid things with your money. You need to be playing either nothing, sit there, keep accumulating capital, or if your strategy is to DCA, meaning that you want to be the guy, girl, that's seeing X's on your money, right? You're buying at $200, seeing it run up to 20, 15K, seeing it pull back, saving your capital during this time, then buying more at 3K and repeat, retrace. But the question is this really the bottom? And I don't think it is. And I've talked about this umpteen times before. I don't think this has changed at all. What's interesting is that it looks like it has, right? So we'll see if the market does continue to go that route. It'll let us know. But I just don't see how the market is ready to flip so soon, just yet. It's only been 310 days. So this would be the shortest quote unquote bear market on record. Given all of the institutional play in the market, I am not convinced at all that this is the bottom. Not by a long shot. They spend too much time and money getting people in to get out for them to be ready to get in already. It just doesn't make sense. So, be careful out there if you think this is the bottom. Because I'd wait for some other type of confirmation. Because this isn't it. The markets don't bottom like this. Um, so I would wait a little longer. Study other bottoms. Right. This is the 2019 bottom. As you can see, it doesn't really look anything like this. And just really from a purely statistical perspective, if every other top was a V and every other bottom was a V with some sideways after, which is what we've seen up until now, why would you presume after a double top you're going to see a mini double bottom? Because this was a long double top. This was like 6 months. Let's see. 210 days. So that's 7 months versus, there you go, 3 months, 2.5, whatever the case is. But point made. So I'd be wary still about thinking that this is a bottom. There's still too much positive sentiment surrounding this price level. But nothing really has changed in the market. Um, let's look at the market cap charts. Um, yeah, they're still they really don't look positive, right? And let me just give you guys an understanding of what this is. This is holding on to a very important area of support. So if we do see the crypto market lose this moving average, it could lead to some serious downside price action, right? So in reality, we need to break this 1.1 trillion line of resistance. And the reason I call this one is because this is where the market previously rolled over, right? Like this is where you see that engulfing bear take over. And that'll be the impact level on the way back up. Man, we're a little ways away. Half a trillion, 600 million, whatever that number is. But that's the number, right? And that's what we need to be looking out for if you're watching that. Now, it just so happens that we're under the 987-day moving average. And that's pretty significant because that's very long term. And typically when we go over that or under that, it's, looks like it's time to be buying, right? But you get the market to dip back. But before that, the market never even saw this line because it's so long. So this is what it looked like prior. Let me go. Well, this is the total. So let me pull up the old Bitcoin chart because that was for the crypto market as a whole. See what it looks like on crypto. I mean, and the whole point of that other chart is this is when it should be the time for you to look the DCA into the crypto market, right? That's the whole point. But for looking at it from a Bitcoin perspective, right, you gotta look at every unit of account solo. You can't look at it concurrently. Let's see here. So Bitcoin is barely holding on to this low end area of support, which is 16 and a half. Now, Mount Gox is really the biggest cloud hanging over the market's head presently, outside of people having to continue to sell risk assets because of interest rates, right? Because that's the whole thing with the dollar. Why people think it's topping or whatever the case is. And it looks like it is, right? It really does look like it is, but I don't think so. And we'll go over that right now. If you look at the MACD, it's still above the zero line. That's number one. Typically, you want to see some activity and then a top below that place, below that zero line, as you see here. Right? You kind of got some activity happening before the actual dump. This is really still pressing up on it. It's not really, you just got some negative histograms, right? Some negative delta. But the moving averages are what determines kind of where price is going to go. And that's the important thing to remember because the negative histograms are just really like they could just be showing you like the heat, the friction that's coming off the system. That's the way I look at the histograms. Because if you look at the histograms, you see them even when market's bullish, the red ones and the green ones. So all they're really giving you is the temperature at that point in time and if the market's going to cool off or heat up, right? That's really what the histogram is telling you. The RSI also is really my go-to for direction. And if you look at the RSI, it's really above the mid-band. The mid-band is 45 to 55. And typically what you want to see in a bear market or when a market is about to roll over is you want to see price trading near here. Like, and this is what you see here before the top. Like you see that price is just leaning on that. And then whoosh. And then back here in 2000, you had the market persistently roll over into that mid band and come back and then finally make that top here. Right? But you got to understand that these things happen in threes, right? Which is interesting about like tops and bottoms, because there's always a 2 to 3 type of rotation, 2 to 3 move pivot move type rotation, right? Because you got this price over here at 119, and you got 120, 121, right? And the market was just diffusing this whole time in conjunction with everything else that was happening in the economy at the time, right? Because all these things make one picture. And that's what's hard for the novice to understand, because sentiment is really what leads to one understanding the story behind the chart and why that is the call, right? Because as we see here, what we see is successive lower highs, right? Meanwhile, chart is making higher highs until that last one. So technically, that last one was not the divergent call. It was this one, which was July, June versus January. So 6 months in between the market actually reacting to that top call, to that actual tippy top, right? And these are the things that is difficult to understand when you're just learning this stuff. But tops are difficult, bottoms are difficult. Understanding the market and what it sees, that's the key to figuring this stuff out. And that's where sentiment comes in. This is why crypto is a move now, because people don't even know it exists. A lot of people don't even understand it within it. You know, we've had rotations of people within the space already. You know, you probably got plenty of people that are Bitcoin wealthy that just don't have any interest in participating in the community aspect of it for what seems to be obvious reasons. Um, and, you know, they're just doing their thing. But now you have this other wave of individuals participating in this economic reality, because that's what it is, right? It's an economic reality. And yeah, people do need to be laser focused right now. This is why, you know, I named the stream Two Systems, One Pocket, because, you know, we have to make some decisions, and they're important decisions to understand. Like, how do you know a market is topping out? How do you know that, right? I mean, there's a lot that goes into understanding a market top is happening or a market bottom is happening. I mean, nobody wanted to buy stocks at the bottom of 2008. Nobody. Nobody wanted to buy stocks at the bottom of 2009. And this was the actual stock market bottom here in March. And look at what the dollar was doing. This is the dollar chart. The dollar was rotating higher into that low, into that market low. But it continued to bottom out as well and trended higher over time. But it was nothing, right, like the S&P. But you know what? I mentioned that I wanted to look at the dollar versus the rate, and let's do that to try to give you guys an understanding of what I'm talking about. And if you look here, you'll see that the rate bottomed out August 2020. The dollar bottomed out a year later, May 2021, 8 months later. At this point in time, rates had already been moving up, and this is the 10-year rate, not even the overnight rate. The 10-year rate have moved up. Let's see, 11% from the low. Simple. So that's the incentive for people to start buying dollars right there. And there's your evidence. Now that's on to the upside. Now let's look at what happens when we go in the opposite way. When people are dumping dollars, what's happening? Well, it's kind of like what I told you guys before. The dollar actually gets thrown down first, then the interest rate goes up. because people have to say, I don't want this after it's paying a yield. Because over time, what happens is that the demand for the dollar grows so strong that you see the yields go down in value. Right? This is what you see here. Yield going down in value, the yield going down in value this whole time. Meanwhile, the dollar's going up. Right? But of course, the 10-year interest rate is not going to just reflect the US dollar. Right? There's a lot of things that go into a 10-year timeline. So the currency is going to reflect immediate economic realities versus a 10-year distance of an interest rate, which is, the right way to think about these things, because that's the reality. That's how people view it. People aren't making a decision based on now when they're looking at a 10-year rate. It's just not how it works. It turns out. So that's a little alpha there for you. But yeah, so you'll see the demand for the dollar coming in here, right, to a certain extent in the rate, with the yield starting to go down, and boom, dollar takes off. So this is how it works. That's how it works, guys. And I just wanted you guys to see that. So now you guys know that. No more lies. What's up, man? How active am I with the team off? Oh, but pretty active, man. I have a Telegram for it, and that's where a majority of the interaction happens. Even when I write stuff for it, I'll just do it in the Telegram, and that's where everything happens. So yeah, hope that answers your question. I mean, if you was in that that alpha chat, you sure as hell caught that Hedron bottom. That's for sure. I had people on that for 2 months before it even happened. So yeah. Yo, yeah. It's crazy. Markets are crazy right now. Just all manner of markets. Um, and that's what's interesting about this point in time, right? It's literally unique. There's never been a point in time like this. And this is why it's so interesting to sit here and contemplate what we're seeing. Because what we're seeing is reality, right? A lot of people don't want to accept that. They don't want to respect it or whatever, but it is what it is. Um, do I think that there'll be another snapshot before Pulse chain launch? Yeah, I think so, because it's been too long. I don't think that just doesn't make sense. Why would they fork something from a year before? Sorry for the party. But yeah, there definitely should be another snapshot before, because the fork is gonna happen at that point in time. It's not gonna happen before that, right? So the fork is what actually creates what you consider the snapshot, but there's no actual snapshot. When the chain gets forked, whatever you have in your wallet is what you'll see on Pulse Chain when it goes live. So I didn't even answer your question properly. I'm sorry. So let me start over. It's not a snapshot. It's a fork. So because it's a fork, it's going to be literally whatever's in your wallet at that point in time when the fork happens. Whatever block height gets picked. But it'll clearly be one nearer to the present moment in time and not a year ago, right? Or whenever any testnet came out. Thank you again, brother, for the super chat. This is the most important bear market in a long time. They used to throw rocks at crypto. Now they are pointing heavy machinery at us. They are scared as fuck. And that's a great comment. I wish you didn't even pay for that one, because that's a great one, because it's so true. Right? I've been saying this for a long time, because this is how you know the enemy has no recourse. Now they're in the US is threatening to ban mining. Little do they know, nobody cares a damn about that. Like, the world has moved on from mining. Only third world countries are doing that. and corporations, because nobody else gives a damn. People are mining in their cribs and they're using GPUs. So they can't even ban that because they're saying you can't use a computer at that point. And that's stupid. So, But this just goes to show how little they understand, right? Do we know where the 400 billion that went to BTC came from? That's a good question. A lot of it was smaller time purchases that happened years ago. A lot of it is present time purchases, which are high dollar value. And you can really only answer that question with chain analysis and like maybe some Python data, tools that I'm aware of. Like that would be the only way I could answer that question. And that would just be checking the duration of how long, Bitcoin has been in the wallet. That would be the best way to answer that, because then you can connect that time frame to the present point, to the point in time in which that crypto was bought, right? Versus now. And that would answer the question. Let me see. Do you think iCoda should be viewed as another cheap T-shirt money printer? Yes, 100%. Yeah, yeah. Look, if you're not using all these money printing opportunities that we have allotted to us, that most people don't even know exist, I mean, you're doing it wrong. Because as I was explaining moments ago, bottoms happen when people figure out that they need to be buying something. And they figure that out en masse. You want to be buying before they figure that out. That's how you get zero risk in your play, right? That's what you want. You want to be buying Hex now when everybody thinks it's dead and all this stupidity for 1 cent, less than 1 cent, whatever the hell end of this world message is. You know, the world isn't gonna end. Financial resets happen all the time. In fact, let's go over that. What happens? And shout out to my homie that reminded me of this. What happens if everything does go to shit? It turns out there's an act that was passed a while back that essentially basically puts us back at zero in a good way. No inflation, just a regular, like we just get regular money. That's the best way to put it. No income tax, all these things that don't make sense would magically disappear. And the economic system will function as it was intended to function. And this is called the National Economic Security and Recovery Act. Was a set of proposed economic reforms for the United States suggesting during the 90s by a Harvey Francis Bernard. Bernard claimed that the proposals, which included replacing the income tax with the national sales tax, abolishing compound interest on secure loans, and returning to built bimetallic currency, would result in 0% inflation and a more stable economy. The proposals were never introduced before Congress, but they know it's on the books. And that's, how it works. They'll create this thing, write it out, act like it doesn't exist. Then when all hell breaks loose, oh, hey, here, this thing is ready. This is how all these weird legislations get passed in record time, right? So while it never got introduced, you better believe it's in somebody's desk just waiting to get yanked, because it will be necessary at some point in time. It'll be the only way to reset the system in some shape or form. Because then what happens is all creditors get wiped out, right? I mean, secured loans are loans. Oh well, they even give you the definition here. In which the borrower pledges some asset as collateral for the loan, meaning that loan that they received was on the behest of some material property, whether it be real estate or something else of value, right? That's what that means. Um, so yeah, you know, we are at a very unique vantage point in time because we get to experience uh, the early days of the vaporized money, virtual money, whatever you want to call it, digital currency, cryptocurrency. I like to call it cryptocurrency. Um, and I think that we're experiencing the birth of what it's going to be in the future because we're doing actual crypto. Nobody's been doing actual crypto. And, to sleep on Icosa and Hedron is crazy to me because, you know, for whoever wasn't around for Hex, Hedron's out around too. And a lot of people missed out on that low because they were being pigheaded or whatever. And they're looking now though, but now it's retracing now. Um, but Icosa is tied pretty much directly to Hex. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. Um, but again, this is a great staking tool, right? So you take advantage of it as such. Because when you stake Icosa, you get Icosa and Hedron, not just Icosa. And when you stake Hedron, you get Icosa. So, you know, it's a win-win-win. Here's Hex at 4 cents. I mean, it's kind of like I told you guys, when we bottomed out back in June, we're just gonna chop sideways because that's what happens. And we saw it. When you look at every Bitcoin chart, and anytime the market's bottomed, what do you see? Just that. Stops going down and it just goes sideways. And then eventually it just starts going back up again. And that's it. That's just how it works. Hedron is actually looking pretty decent in my opinion on this pullback. We'll see how it continues to sustain itself. I like how it's holding right here on the mid band. As you guys know, this is what I would consider support for price, and the market is reacting as such. If you look at a 15-minute chart, how about a 4-hour chart? Yeah. Let's get rid of this. Kind of holding on to support basically. So it's kind of maintaining the market structure on the chart. If we don't breach that 3.5 on a closing basis, we might be all right. If we do, then hey, we welcome lower prices because again, this is software, right? And as long as the software doesn't have an off switch, we got to buy it. We got to buy it. If it yields and if it does all these things and if it has a purpose, if it has a utility, like before, Hedron was only a game to get cheap t-shirts. Now, it's a game to get yield and cheap t-shirts. You can't lose. Like, you just can't lose. And that's important to understand because that's what crypto's supposed to be at this point in time because we're so early. And I think that's lost in a lot of people. Um, Not sure how to, you can't force people to understand what you understand, but you got to make sure you understand. Nah, I don't use DMI. I like MACD and RSI. I like to stack indicators. I don't like everything in one. I feel like you can get a false positive or something. I just like to stack. I'm more comfortable that way. A lot of people use DMI. Kareem, for one, uses DMI. As everybody knows. So yeah. Yep, they're everywhere. They are everywhere. Let's see. What other questions you guys got up in here? Yeah, I think you gotta kind of figure out what works for you. You gotta figure out what it is that you want to do and do it. right? I mean, I think that's harder than a lot of us realize to some people. 220,000 hex doesn't even sound like a lot of hex to some people, but that's a lot of hex. For a person with none, one T share, whatever the case is, that's a lot of hex. Well, some people can't find that focus to just, sorry, some people can't find that focus to just consistently do one action. There's discipline required in doing that. This is how I figured out all this nonsense that I'm showing you guys by picking at this rock incessantly with no other, interest in anything else. Right. And we all have that thing that puts us in that position. Now, look at where we have the Fed funds rate. We have it at 2.33. Okay. Now, this is important because a lot of people, you know, and here is the indicator to let you know it's the Fed funds, that orange, right? 2.33%. We were just at 1.5 or something like that, right? And I was explaining how they were going to talk the market up so that they could mark the market up. And this was going to cause erratic moves, just like we saw here in yield. And this is exactly what we ended up seeing. The only thing that hasn't materialized is a solid blowout move lower in crypto and other risk assets. That's the only thing that hasn't materialized yet. Now, what's important to understand is how capital flows, because everything happens in interest rates first, as I just showed you guys minutes ago with the dollar versus a 10-year yield, right? And, as people that understand that we're in a situation where, we could wake up tomorrow and the dollar might not be the dollar. It could be something else. And a lot of people are unaware that that's the case. And if something happens where there's a gap in being able to access money or do anything, are you ready for that? Are you prepared? And this isn't a scare message or nothing like that. This is just a serious thing because you see Sri Lanka, you see Pakistan, you see Lebanon, Libya, all these places where all this economic despair exists because people rely on government strictly. They don't rely on themselves. And America really isn't that different in a lot of ways, especially when, they impose themselves in every which aspect of our lives. It's kind of hard for them to not be, right? And this is why you have to be ready for them to fail because they're already admitting to it on multiple fronts. And I've discussed that as well. And that never happens. You never hear these people admit defeat, admit anything, except for that, except for their inability to be whacked. They're the best. They're worse than DJ Khaled. You know, if you think DJ Khaled has an ego, you must not be paying attention to politicians or bureaucrats. Like they're the worst. Um, you know, tell you what, if you think about how things happen, everything happens in a cyclical fashion. This is midterm year 2022. I'm gonna go ahead and let y'all know this is the bear market year, right? 2023 will be kind of like whatever, but 2024, that's that. We got to continue to accumulate 2022, 2023. But 2024 is gonna be that year, like 2020, 2021, where markets just took off, right? And that's just how it works. Things happen in cycles. Um, so it's important to understand that because this is why you DCA and hard body now, right? You want to get the lows. You want to get as much as possible for these lows. Like now is the time. If you got debt, you know, and it's within reasonable reach relative to your income, get rid of that debt. Get rid of that debt, especially if you got to pay it. Just get rid of it. This is the only way to find success is with a clear mind. It took me a long time to figure that out because you're still sweating that other problem, or something's pressuring you. You can't think straight. You got to find that peace of mind some way, somehow. That's critical. It's critical because everybody wants the same thing. I mean, the Hex Investment Trust. So whatever happens with that is a function of the people that know it exists, right? I mean, if nobody's marketing it or anything like that, then that's going to be the traction relative to what's in there. I can't give you guys a lot of information since it's a private affair, but I can say that we do have some Hexicans that are invested, and we do have people that weren't Hexicans invested that are becoming Hexicans after investing, and that's the goal. That's the objective. Is to really find more of the latter than the former. We don't want Hexicans invested in this unless they find it a feasible investment, because really it only really makes sense for the person seeking yield after it's public and it's in that position. For now, it's just a private investment. Um, and even if it is paying yield, it's not going to be anything that you can do anything with. So, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. What's up, Dominic? Yep, trapdoors everywhere, man. Trapdoors everywhere. Yeah, I don't go by that call. I go by when the market actually topped out, which was November 2021, not April 2021. Because if that was the case, we've been, it's April, it's fucking September 2022. So, year and a half in, right? So if that's the case, this is a completely different type of market. It's a completely different type of bear cycle that nobody understands that we're on. Because then that would mean a double top with the first peak happening in April 2021, second peak November 2021, with a higher peak in November 2021, which doesn't make sense in that case. And that's why I would say that's the top, because that's the higher peak with the lower RSI momentum. So, and when did the market actually stop going up? It stopped going up right at 45, 48K, because it was still really back and forth between 60, 55K and 40, 45K. And I think it was, let me see here. Yeah, I think it was here. Yep. Late March. It was right. I remember the headline. It was something to the effect of Bitcoin is going to the moon, or it can't be stopped, or some nonsense like that. And I don't know, it was just so ridiculous, the headline, that I was just like, all right, this is the top. Like, that was it. Like, that, it was done going up, and that was literally it. Like, that's how stupid the headline was. And that's just how it works. So that is when I consider the top. I consider this to be the top because it was the higher peak with the lower RSI. This was just a stop along the way. The market didn't really stop rolling here. It just pulled back and then came back, went a little bit higher, and then boom, gave you a little bear flag, and then proceeded to actually go lower. Here, kind of just found some support, retraced, and then it actually topped out. So that's how I would view it. I wouldn't view it back like that. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm not. But that's not my point of view. So we'll see. Yeah, I mean, I think I've said that before. I think this could run a little bit longer because of all the institutional involvement. Right. This is why the top happened how it happened. Double top, right? Everybody likes to look at double tops. Yeah, I suspect it's a dead cat bounce as well. These are my favorite, I think. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what. Tiggle biddies. The full situation is not looking good. They are forcing it in every which way possible, and that's kind of what's crazy about it. Um, you don't want to typically see food disruptions, right? But you're seeing them literally go out of their way to like destroy food processing plants, feed animals bad food, and just all manner of things that just don't make any sense. Um, and yeah, fake bottoms don't move. They're definitely trying to do that, and you can see it, right? The price of things in dollar terms are ridiculous. I mean, the U.S. is looking like a third world country. The price of everything is doubling. People out here robbing and stealing because they can't afford. I mean, people in middle class America are being forced to make decisions that they've never been forced to make before. If that isn't a depression, or at least a start of one, I don't know what is. You know what I'm saying? So I don't really care, bro. You doesn't really matter to me. I know I called it. I don't care about what he called. Thank you for the super chat, brother. Yeah, this is free. Thank you, man. Appreciate you listening for a long time and getting value from the information. Because again, it's just like, what's my objective? My objective is to give you guys objectionable, or objective information that you can act on, right? Because the information that I'm sharing is stuff that you can go verify and confirm, and then make your own decisions on. You know what I mean? Uh, Thank you, man. Appreciate the shout out. Um, yeah, I do always say people don't listen. Appreciate that, man. I'm glad you're doing your part. And when I say that people don't listen, I mean, at large. I don't mean people that are actually watching the stream. Because I remember when I first started saying that a lot, people were getting annoyed. I even started hearing like from people that I'm close to, like, "Hey, man, you gotta stop saying that shit. People are getting mad." And I'm like, "But I don't mean it to them. Like, they're watching the fucking stream." So yeah, no, not talking to you guys, not at all. Talking to people that don't listen, because we are definitely so early, and that's really the biggest part of this message, right? This is why I had no qualms doing a 15-year stake. Like, once I figured out what the hell the point of doing a 15-year stake was, how the system worked, and all these tidbits. Well, I knew the long game, but I meant like the technical tidbits of staking long. It was game over. There was nothing else to think about. It was easy peasy, right? Because if you understand what just happened, you know what to do. And that's really just as simple as that. If you want to take gains along the way, that's cool. But, you know, there's a cost to that. And the cost of that is future gains. So it's imperative that you actually realize that you're early. Well, I'm not a whale, but I'm gonna be. So what does the name whales only mean? And why did I pick it? I don't think people really know. So the reason I picked it is because anybody that's getting into crypto right now is gonna be a whale at some point in the future, if they play the game the right way, which is just by exercising patience, DCAing, doing all these basic things that I don't even understand why they gotta be explained, but they do, because people just plain old don't know what the best strategy is. And the best strategy is finding, $200, $300, buying ever so often, as long as you can afford to buy, and then take the staking action once a month, once every 2 weeks, once every 6 months, whatever makes sense to you for your life, for your rotational needs, and make your stakes according to your plans. That's it. Like, this is very easy. And now you have all these options once you make a 555 stake. Like, you can tokenize it or just make it native, and you can play with the system however you want. So, you just got to really do your research, understand the benefits, understand the drawbacks, and, proceed accordingly, because it's a different ball game now. The community's bigger, everything is greater. The tools are improving. Pulse chain is on the way. We got a lot of things that, is just setting up for a bull run for us. So, the time to make yourself a whale is now. And, for those that don't know, Richard said it himself. He intends to do nothing but make whales. So, yeah, whales only is why I picked that name. I mean, it's his fault. Why not? Because I don't know about you guys, but I intend to be a whale. I don't ever intend to stop buying crypto. In fact, I'd be hard pressed if crypto isn't some type of common form of payment within the next 10 years. Because now you have all of these intermediaries trying to get in where they fit in. And, called that a while ago too, right? I mean, we see what these guys are doing. As long as you're paying attention to these headlines, you see what these folks are doing. You see the MasterCards, the Visas, the PayPals, the eBays, right? They're trying to get in where they fit in because they're seeing that people are changing their habits. People are learning. So stick around, do your time. You will be a whale. Everybody's supposed to be a whale. This is early days. This is like the internet in the 90s. Do your time and you will be rewarded. One way or the other. That's for sure. Because that's just how the cookies crumble. Markets markets always operate in a rhythmic fashion. The question is, what side of the beat are you on? You want to be on the right side. And this is really the message. Yeah, we're so early. You just gotta do your time, and you're gonna get there. Just like you got people that were buying ETH in 2015, Bitcoin in 2012, 2015. You know, that's right. It just happens with time. It just happens with time. Thank you for the super chat. Well, there you go. He said to watch November. I mean, look, they're supposed to be releasing these Mount Gox coins within the next 30 days. Will they? We never know. They always say they're gonna do something, but they never do it. So we will see. Thank you for the super chat, Steve. But we'll see. And yes, that's exactly how you need to be looking at this market. Um, now is the time. Now is the time. Simple as that. I don't understand the question. They serve different purposes. So you should figure out what purpose works best for you, because they both serve different purposes. Neither are better or worse than the other. They both serve different functions. Will Hedron hit 1 cent? That's a good question. I don't actually know. Um, hmm. I'm confident that we'll see 3 zeros at some point. For it to see 1 cent, Hex has to be, I think, in double digit dollars, or maybe single digit dollars. Let me think. Yeah, it gotta be double digit dollars. in order for us to see 1 cent hedron. So take advantage of the 5 zeros and rock for the 3. That'll happen much quicker than the 1 0. There is the answer that you're looking for there, sir. Stake Hex, get Hedron for free. Stake Hedron, get Icosa. Win. You can buy. You can do HSI buyback with the tokenized stake and get Icosa that way as well, and earn Hedron and Icosa, and not have to buy Hedron or Icosa outright. You can just do a value exchange swap, buy your stake back later at a future point in time. So it just depends. Yeah, but you got to understand they serve different purposes. So that's why you got to understand what you're looking at. Like the answer isn't mutually exclusive for either, right? Because Hedron has a whole different vantage point relative to Icosa. Icosa is a buck and change. Hedron is fractions of a cent. So just based on that, the decision parameters are completely different. It's not a simple yes no question that you're gonna get that you're asking there. So you gotta figure that out, brother. I don't think it really. Somebody asked me that the other day too. I don't really think it matters because they're two different things. Icosa exists because of Hex. Like everybody needs to remember that. If it wouldn't be for Hex, Hedron nor Icosa would be a thing. So they are a thing because of the T share. So the premier asset always and will forever be Hex because that is that's the value standard. That's the standard of value. That's the store of value. Hedron is giving you an avenue to acquire T shares, which you can no longer acquire in a cheap fashion. And Icosa is allowing you to earn yields from that Hedron system because it allows you to use those tokenized stakes as a value add-on play to the system. So I don't see it as a specific point of competition because at the end of the day, if you look at it as a whole system, because that's how I look at Hex and icosahedron, I look at it as a whole system. So Hex is the long-term play, and icosahedron are the shorter-term plays. That's how I treat it. So that's how I would recommend you treat it because that's how their utilities kind of fit in my mind. Uh, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think we're lucky that we have all of these value mechanisms, right, which track something of value. Not a lot of people can say that. I mean, not in crypto, definitely not in legacy. Legacy, all that is fugazi. So, unless it's commodity backed or commodity tied, they're not really doing much of anything. So let's see what other questions you guys got. What's going on, Umfe? Let's see. Icosa money printers versus Hedron potential price appreciation to fair market value. Yeah, that's the question that everybody needs to ask and answer. I like playing both sides of the coin. That's what I like because Hedron is so cheap that if you're buying $100 a Hedron, it's currently what, $3.80, $3.90. Let's go to Wolfram because you gotta look at this stuff practically, right? If you got $3.90 per million, I think this math is all wrong. Yeah. You're getting 3.9 million coins every time you spend $3.90. Every time you spend $3.90, you're getting a million coins. This is how you need to think about Hedron. At one point, it was trading at 18 cents per million. Now, if you were paying attention, that's a 21x, right? So if it's trading at $3.9 per million and you want to get $200 worth, right? That'd be $200 divided by $3.09 or 90 cents. That'd be 51 million coins is what you be getting. So then, you know, if you're rocking with 51 million coins and the price is $3.90 per million, and what happens if it goes up to $12 per million? Just 4x, man, right? Your 51 million coins is now worth 615 million coins worth. And that's the power in low market value coins, right? And understanding what's going on, because this is all about understanding the big picture. You can't make the proper assessment without knowing the big picture, right? And this is why you gotta look at it as a whole system. You can't look at Hex and Hedron and Icosa separately. They all play together. Yeah, it's gonna be pretty good for us. Pretty good for us. Yeah, they're really gonna try to push that CBDC, and it's gonna be funny because they're gonna fail. Yep, wouldn't be a bad idea. Just checking to see what other questions you guys might have, if any. Um, let's see. Funny. What's up, homie? 100%. That's a fact. You play the game right, can't lose. And playing the game right is, hold on, man. And playing the game right is exercising patience and doing your due diligence, because you guys got to realize Bitcoin and Ethereum, you know, you missed those already. Hex is the next iteration. So that's why you got to just DCA, DCA, DCA. That's all. Let's see. Legacy finance indicators may work on BTC as its old world algo traded by bots using centralized exchange APIs. Yeah, real DeFi. Ari Sminkle says isn't that Rally News? Yeah, I had to make this point yesterday on Wake Up Hex, because people just don't understand the difference between what they see in Bitcoin and what they see in the Hex market. When Hex goes down because Bitcoin is going down, that's because somebody is saying, okay, I am selling. Bitcoin goes down because somebody pressed a button for that thing to go down because they wanted it to go down. Somebody's selling, somebody's getting scammed somewhere. Like, there's a whole bunch of different factors for Bitcoin and Ethereum. For Hex, it's not the same thing. So to sit there and say it's correlated and nothing else is kind of short-sighted. You got to explain the correlation, because one thing is true is that, Bitcoin and Hex don't look the same, right? When you're looking at it from a holistic point of view, right? Excuse me, give me a second here. Let me throw Bitcoin or Hex on this thing. Now we're looking at a 5-day point-to-point aggregate, right? This is literally what we're looking at. Now, the scaling is a function of time. See? If I zoom in, zoom out, looks like it's the same. Till I zoom all the way out, then you realize it's not the same, right? This is why on average, the correlation is 0, because they're not the same. Now, this is on a 5-point basis, right? Now, you had Bitcoin all the way up here this whole time, where Hex had to play catch up to a certain extent, right? And then it catapulted ahead of Bitcoin, and then it topped out first. Bitcoin was still finding its footing to top out, and it finally did a couple months after that, right? September to November. So Hex top bottomed here, and Bitcoin, as of now, looks like it's bottoming here. So we'll see weak difference this time around. But let's look at it on a day-to-day basis. Well, as you guys can see, Bitcoin isn't really tracking Hex, right? I mean, anytime there's a gap, it's just not, correlation. And this was very difficult for people to understand. Like, for something to be correlated, they got to be moving in tandem. Like, there can't be no gaps. Because when it happens, is more important that it happen. Because if you were trying to buy here, you failed. But this is going down the whole time. So why were you trying to buy here? Right? So it's like it's weird, right? But you can't call it correlated. It's just moving in the same direction for sure. But you got to understand it's psychological, because that's why people can buy the dip down here, right? Because when they're looking at a Hex chart, it just doesn't look like a Bitcoin chart at all. And there's something to be said for that. Um, when you're looking at a Bitcoin chart, it doesn't look like it's found support, unlike Hex. You look at a Bitcoin chart, people are hoping it's found support, but we'll see, because it's running into what's previously been a resistance zone area for it, where it just gets yanked again. And this is all we see, right? I mean, it could be a bull trap of some sort, just like what we saw here, and just like what has been seen here, and pretty much the whole way down. Um, but it's important to understand, that what are the drivers of a market, right? It's very important to understand. Now, you got the Queen of England that just passed. Um, UK is shutting down for like 10 days because they gotta do all this stuff that normally doesn't happen. Um, what could happen in that time frame? Typically when markets shut down for that period amount of time, it's because the war is going on or something like that. So it's very interesting that at this point in time, you got these instances in where markets can be shut down, right? Because now the UK they're gonna be black for a little while. I don't know when it's gonna start, but they're gonna be black for a little while. Um, and there's no telling what's gonna happen when things get turned back on. Because 10 days is a long time when technology is in question. Um, so that's one thing that is hard to ascertain what could be a determinant, right? Something that could say what's going to happen. But that's the difference between a Bitcoin system, Ethereum system, and what we have with the RH, right? With the Hex ecosystem, right? Because we know Hex always does the same thing. What people decide to do with their Hex is a different question, and this is why we can't presume to think that Hex and Bitcoin and Ethereum are correlated. They're not. They're just not. They can't be, because they don't have the same drivers. And this is very critical to understand. I mean, when you put, let me just do this real quick. Now, what's interesting is that it doesn't look like they're moving in tandem, but in fact, they are. Because it's about the rates of change, folks. It's not about what it looks like on the chart. It's about when it happens, right? Just like I told you guys minutes ago, it was about the timing, right? So you're seeing these jumps happen at the same time, and these dips happen at the same time. And that's how you know that they're correlated, right? When it was Hex, it wasn't at the same time. It was off. And that was what I was trying to show you. But here is more evident because everything is happening at the same time. And this is Bitcoin, okay? Ethereum, same deal. Same deal. Same deal. And that's how you know something is correlated and something is not. And everybody looks for this thing, for anything that's not correlated to the stock market. Anybody. I'm telling you, like, that is common. Let's see here. Thank you for the $5 super chat, brother. Southwest Kansas. I'm paying $500 on water bill last month. Wow. Wow. In Kansas? Yo, I don't pay $450 in electricity, and I live in New York City. I don't pay any water. It's just the rent's crazy. That's just it. Wow. Uh, Jesus. I'd say find. You can't even. That's the thing. I mean, depending on where you live, you can't even tap into no other water source. There's no other way to power your home. Like you're not allowed. I say look into your local utility statutes. Like look into what you can get away with, man. Like learn the laws of your specific jurisdiction in that regard, like actual laws, not made up shit, and see what you can actually do. That's really all you can actually do because the value of the currency is not going to help us. That's the problem with the dollar. We earn in dollars. So when you earn in dollars, dollars doesn't get you more dollars. You got to do stuff to get you more dollars. That's why crypto staking is so crucial because it gets us more crypto and crypto gets us more dollars. See? That's the catch. This is what a lot of people don't get. They're like, "Oh no, I want the USD, blah 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 blah." No, you don't. You actually want that asset that's going to get you more dollars. That's what you actually want. So I hope that answers your question, man, because that's really all you can really do. Just checking to see any other questions. No, why would I close a win? You gotta do the math, bro. You're not doing the math. You gotta think about the quantity of coins you got. That's what a win is. You guys really gotta do the math and stop talking and typing. Like, do the fucking math. Do the math. If you're using $200 and you're getting X number of units to sell, to buy, whatever, what's the ROI on each unit? That's going to determine your overall ROI. So the more units you acquire, the bigger your overall ROI. So why would buying something with a higher dollar value make more sense than buying something with a lower dollar value? Literally does not. Cannot. Correct. Because both are tied to the T-share. So they should be moving in tandem. What's up, brother? Let's see. Um, that's an interesting point. I've thought about that. I don't think so because if you look at when the inflation took off, it took off after crypto was already rolling over. So, you know, that means there's still more pain to be had. Like this pain wasn't happening when the market was rolling over in terms of the cost of living. So people got to sell more assets. Like nobody's really buying crypto. There's still that net asset value discount between grayscale and Bitcoin too. Like there's a lot of things that are just pricing in that negative differential. So no, I don't think so. Thank you for the super chat, brother. Those who can't understand Hex and conflate price with value need to pay way more attention. What was interesting is that those who don't understand the difference between value and price are gonna end up paying way more anyway. So yeah, that's the funny thing. These things kind of just happen. They don't ever look like they're gonna happen. They just do. So we'll see. Stable. It's just an algorithmic coin that's tied to the system. So if prices go up in hex and t-shirt terms, it's gonna go up as well. That's all. So if it goes down, it'll go down as well. Simple as that. Bum, 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 bum. Funny. Let's see. About to wrap it up, guys. Just understand, you're at a point in time where fiat is on the cusp. You got systems getting shut down in the UK now. Um, what happens on the other side of that, we'll see. Uh, currency's corridors are being erected all over. Um, different trading corridors, different currency venues: Brazil, China, Russia, India. The usual suspects: South Africa, whoever has commodities, basically. Right, except for Canada. Canada doesn't care about us. That's what the world can out for them. So they're not worried about that. But anybody else, right, like they're gonna be worried about, like they're waking up and realizing that they have to take care of business, and they're doing it. So be mindful of that, because that means the U.S. dollar is no longer the preferred go-to currency. Very important to understand that, because that means that either people are gonna just not engage the markets, conduct international trade settlement in that currency, which is going to lead to lower liquidity, higher rates, right? Outside of the fact that the Fed is trying to talk rates up, it's one thing for them to try to talk rates up. It's another thing for the market to decide to say, yeah, we're done with this fake charade that is a dollar, right? Because people are figuring it out. When you got to give up more Federal Reserve notes, which are based on nothing, in exchange for valuable goods, they get pissed, because anywhere else in the world, that's not what the exchange is. It's a reasonable amount of notes or fiat currency units, right? And this is what wakes people up to the scam. So that's critical to understand. I mean, you got to be decent as much as you can, right? Just do what you can, guys. That's really the catch, because this is a slow game, right? It's no getting rich quick here. At this point, you prepare for the bull market, right? Because the bull market, trust me, is glorious. But you gotta play it right. You gotta play it right. uh, yeah, that's right. What up, D? um, and yeah, that's it, man. You know, nobody knew. Nobody knew. I didn't think. I couldn't see 20,000. Like, that was crazy back then. And this is what people don't understand. You know, this is what's happening. And yeah, corridors do become funnels. This is how collapses happen in certain currencies, right? And I did say I was gonna go over FX, so let's do that. I mean, I guess the main one I want to highlight is just the yen. I mean, this thing has been on a tear, right? I mean, we're at a point in time now where U.S. dollar is just blistering everything, right? Um, and told you guys we're gonna see like moves that we're not gonna understand, and we're seeing them. We're seeing them. Um, and it's just a function of time. Time is requesting it, and this is basically an inverse head and shoulder, right? And in a lot of ways, it's a double inverse head and shoulder, because you got one, two, and then all these shoulders here. I mean, this is going to be a huge move. We could see $300 yen in 2-3 years time, maybe even sooner. Who knows? But this is a major thesis, because nobody's expecting that. I mean, the market would be caught so far off guard. It's insane. And these are the kinds of things you need to look for. I mean, look at the dollar yen yuan. If this ever breaks that peg to the upside, that's not what China wants. If anything, they would want it to the downside because that means their currency is getting stronger. But if they're tying away from the dollar, then they don't want it to go. They don't want the dollar to go up against their currency. So anything above 7.25 is bad, right? And this is why you've been seeing them pressuring it down for so long, and they've only recently been letting it run wild over the past 7 years because they now have that dual currency system where they got the onshore, offshore yuan, and that's advanced, but whatever. Not really important to understand for this topic, but just understand that up is no good for China. They want down USD yuan exchange rate. What we have here is the US dollar Swiss franc. Now this has always been like a one-way trade because the Swiss franc has always been viewed as a safe haven. And that's kind of what you see here, right? Ever since the 70s. Was that 4.31 and the low is 0.7, right? So if nothing goes haywire, this relationship continues between dollar and franc, right? But what happens if dollar starts going up? Typically those are signs of stress, something or something bad happening or something like that, right? Like you saw this here, 95 to 2000, where dollar went up versus the franc, and what was happening? Well, a lot of risk taking was going on, and then after that, the market corrected itself for a long time, all the way into 2011. And that was primarily due to all the central banking issues. Hold on, guys. Yes, sir. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because it's just like a 7 year cycle. And that's just it, man. I mean, 7 years is every 7 years. So 7 years happens every year. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. But it's interesting that ever so often on this specific 7 year cycle, stuff does happen. But we'll see. We'll see. But just, important FX pairs like US dollar CAD, like this is one to watch because Canada is a very interesting position. But again, right, it's one dirty shirt versus another. Like, who cares? I mean, the pound versus the dollar, we're seeing all these lows right here. Like, this is all time lows. This is when they broke the pound. Like, we're not supposed to be down here. But here we are, right? Like, what's going on? Nothing good. That's what. Pound yen looks like it's just getting ready to go bananas as well, coinciding with the same picture that you're seeing in the dollar yen. Euro USD, as you guys already know, looks like it's trying to take a breather, but it's probably just doing a little bull flag or bear flag price action, to be honest. That's my opinion. I think we're just seeing some bear flag activity, and then we're just going to see it roll over some more because this is nowhere near closing, and this is 21 candles per bar. So we clearly got plenty of time there. Euro yen, same deal, right? I mean, we're seeing it. I already got the boxes on here. You guys already see what time it is. So, we're definitely gonna tag a $1.70 on the way up, see what it does. $1.85 after that. And then 210, 200. I mean, it's gonna get interesting, man. And all this stuff is gonna be tied into just the destruction of certain respective parts of worldwide economies. Like, governments are doing this stuff. I've been telling you guys for a while, this stuff is coming. Like, this is why we got to understand what money is, right? Like what we deal with is not money. It's currency. It's not the same thing. Money is something that's a store of value and all that good stuff. It means all these definitional properties. And currency doesn't do that. It's just something that's invoked on people by law. That's it. That's all it is. It doesn't mean anything. Like it's worth nothing. Like the day the market says no more USD, that's it. All that USD in your bank account is worth nothing. It doesn't matter how many USD you got. You could be a billionaire, trillionaire. Doesn't matter. And that's how it works, folks. That's literally how it works. Let me look up something. Lebanese pound, US dollar. I think this is the one. Nah. Here we go. So, all of a sudden, one day, your currency is worth zero point zero 0.01 cent versus the USD. And the next thing you know, is worth 75% less or 50% less overnight. That's how it happens, guys. It doesn't take any time. There's no warning shots. That's just, it's coming when it's coming. You either got it, you either ready or you're not. I mean, and if you don't understand these things, nobody can force you. You gotta just do your due diligence and understand that you got one pocket and two systems to contend with. Store of value is crypto. Survival is real assets. Decide how you want to split up your goods, because that's where we're at, right? Could I explain what will happen and what's up exactly? Thank you for the question. What will happen when the 505 stakes come out? I heard it might be hard to end stakes since the blocks on ETH will be full. It depends. It's hard to say because we don't really know what ETH is going to look like in the future. All these imaginary horribles that we hear nowadays are predicated on what the system looks like today. And we don't really know what it's going to look like today. We can hope that it's going to be better, not worse. The change that happened via the SLO function was targeting specifically us. So it's meant to mess our shit up. But that doesn't mean you stop engaging with the system and don't stake appropriately, because you're going to get a copy of that very same stake. So if you want to do a 5555, and you go on ahead and do so with the understanding that you're going to get a copy of that on Pulse Chain. And then we'll battle with what happens on ETH, when the time comes, because I'm sure there'll be a solution. If humans are anything but innovative, it's that. We'll figure it out before that time comes. So, yeah, it's rough, man. It's rough for sure. Mm, yeah, that was supposed to happen. It was supposed to happen a little while ago. People forget about that. I think it was in like 2018, 2019, maybe. I can't remember, but it was supposed to happen a while ago. Right after Brexit. Right after Brexit. 'Cause everything was real weak in terms of Eurocentricity. Maybe they're stronger now with all this Rona stuff, even though they're all getting exposed. All right. Looks like we got to the end of the session. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you guys sticking around for this time, asking your questions. I hope you guys kind of understand what I'm trying to say with two systems, one pocket. Um, you, know, the dollar is temporary, it's just a unit of account. You can't get caught up on the dollar. The dollar is just what we call it. It could be tree sticks. You know what I mean? So understand that, and get your mind right. Any questions? You guys know where to reach. Peace. Right? The reality is that I want to be rich as fuck. There's only one way to be rich as fuck. That's by sitting on your ass the longest.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
That's the secret. The guy well told you. Richard done told you. I done told you. Kareem done told you. Maddie done told you. Everybody done told you. Everybody done told you. Shit, motherfuckers still acting like they don't know. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
100% safe. There's plenty of games left.
Valiant done told you. Yo, everybody said it. I mean, hey, you know what it is, man? Everybody done told you. Y'all deep. Everybody. My God. Ex-Asians, bro. Everybody. Australians, man. Everybody gets me. Yo, when is the